So, we're here with Matthew ValBuena. Yes. I said that as Val Kilmer, but good, right?
Yeah,
Buena.
pretty much.
Happy birthday, by
Thank
the way.
you, thank you.
He's with Mazda. We're sitting in the all-new CX-30. This would be the 2020 model year, right?
Correct.
And one thing that I was very impressed with as I drove to where we are now in Southern California here is how beautiful the audio is. I had to sit and think for a little while to come up with ways to
Articulate
it without dropping F-bombs and stuff because it is...
So it's effing awesome.
Yeah, it's more than just really good. It's like beautiful.
Yeah, Mazda as of late has really pursued this idea of sound quality, and we've pushed our audio partners and our engineering team to deliver what we want is a spirited sound.
Okay.
You know, especially when we get these cars back from press trips, usually the journalists will put the bass at +6 and the treble at +6. We know everybody likes kind of more of that boosted EQ type of sound. So when we set out to create the audio system in the 2020 CX-30, we really actually focused the vehicle engineering around the speaker layout. So what that meant is we put the speakers in their best location for proper distribution of sound. The tweeters are at the top of the doors in what we call the sail panel.
Yes.
And they're aimed directly at the listener's ears. The mid-range are up high in the door, again, aiming at the listener's ears. Commonly in other cars, you'll find the speakers low in the door or on the dashboard firing up at the windshield.
And then you get that rattle.
You get rattle
because you got it down in the door, and the door panel starts moving.
Exactly. You have rattling problems because of that. But then also when the speakers are on the dash firing up at the windshield, you don't really have any control over where that sound goes. You want the sound to be at your ears because when you set up a home audio system in your living room, you aim the speakers to where you're sitting.
Right.
Because you want that sound to come right to you. You don't aim your speakers at your windows. And so when you have the speakers on the dashboard, you're firing the sound off the windshield, which scatters it. So again, by placing the speakers in their ideal location, we're aiming the sound at the listeners. But the biggest change that Mazda did was with the bass speakers. Typically, the bass speaker is mounted in the front door. And in the front door, the challenge you have there is, obviously, if you like your music with a lot of bass, you end up incurring lots of rattle, a lot of NVH, door panel buzzing and things of that nature. We took the bass driver out of the door completely and put them within the cowl. So they're in a small enclosure on the left and right side of the dash. If you were to draw an imaginary line from the base of the A-pillar, they're about a foot below the A-pillar and in this enclosure.
Okay.
But by putting them in these cowl enclosures, it's like putting the subwoofer in the corner of your room. You've corner loaded the bass. And in this location, the bass waves, the sound waves, get to reflect off the floor of the vehicle, as well as the firewall and the outside wall of the vehicle. So this really amplifies the output of the bass. So as you were driving here, you really got to experience that impactful feeling when listening to the music. And that was really what we were after. It was kind of more that spirited sound that really delivered an amazing response in terms of sonic height, width, depth, clarity, and detail.
So, in your presentation this morning, you had a lot of MC Hammer references.
Yes. Everybody has embarrassing musical tastes. I love 90s hip-hop, so MC Hammer was my example.
But it got me thinking as I was driving, and I get into a press car every week.
Right.
And whoever had it before me, their settings will be in there. And quite often, almost every time, their music is not what I listen to.
Right.
So I'm a very heavy metal. I like Iron Maiden.
Right. A lot of double bass. A lot of
Yeah. And the bass is always really high in their settings.
Right. Which muddies.
I don't want that.
Right.
But in this, with the bass being so clear, it sounds really good. So what I decided to do was try out what it sounds like when there's a fusion song.
Okay.
So you got a heavy metal band, which was Five Finger Death Punch,
right,
doing a cover of LL Cool J's Mama Said Knock You Out.
Oh, all right.
And so you have both elements.
Yeah.
You have a bass-heavy hip-hop
track, but then with the double bass,
with
kick
lots
drum,
of guitar in the mid, and then the low end growling, which normally if you have a lot of bass, the low end growl gets drowned.
It gets muddy,
right, because it has to be, and it just sounds so awesome in this car. And then going to the other end, we listened to Queen off of your,
the thumb
your
drive.
USB that you put in here. I didn't realize how much music was happening in just a song
All
like
the
Bohemian
layers,
Rhapsody,
all the instruments,
because you can hear every single one of them. I only normally hear that in headphones,
Right.
And in this car, I can hear it driving down the road.
That's
it was
awesome.
Even with the rain and everything else
Yeah.
we've had today, it was beautiful.
The other thing that we did with that USB thumb drive, the CX-30 can support high-resolution audio file playback. So we had the thumb drive loaded with FLAC files. So that Queen Greatest Hits album was a high-resolution FLAC album.
Yes.
And so that's delivering greater than CD quality sound. So because the speakers are capable of great accuracy, we wanted to have a source that had all those details that you would lose out because of compressed audio or other things. Like streaming sources are great for convenience, but because of compression, because of the Bluetooth compression, you're not getting all of the musical intensity that the artist intended. But using the FLAC files on the USB thumb drive, you were hearing details in Bohemian Rhapsody that you never picked up before. And it's amazing when you can listen to a favorite song or a song you're very familiar with and pick something up that you never noticed.
And it's like the first time again.
Yeah.
Right, because it's brand new. So I was interested because you were talking about the design of this. I'll put some overlays so that people can see the graphics you were showing us this morning. You almost literally designed the interior of the car around
the speakers,
the system.
Yes.
And then you must have designed it around the Bose system for this one because of the way I can tell the difference. So when I go into the Bose settings, and you can forget what they call
Center
it,
point audio pilot,
where you can basically raise and lower the amount that's coming from the back
surround,
of the car.
right?
You can hear it change. Whereas normally I don't hear those things very much because you got a lot of noise going on. You got wind and highway and everything else happening. In this car, it seems very engineered towards that audio experience.
And that's the thing is, this car, we're in the premium package car, so it's very well equipped. But even the base trim level has a similar speaker layout, so it still has the cowl enclosures, it still has the mid-range up high in the door, it still has a tweeter.
8-speaker system at the base model.
Yeah, so basically you have a 3-way separate setup in the front doors, and then you have the rear doors in that 8-speaker model. The Bose audio system adds a center channel, adds a subwoofer in the spare tire wheel well, and also adds some rear surrounds. So it builds upon an already solid foundation. But as you mentioned, yes, Centerpoint and Audio Pilot now have more layers of adjustability. Before it was just on or off. Now it's off. And there's 1, 2, 3 levels, so you can choose how much surround you want, or how much Audio Pilot, which is noise compensation for roadway conditions. So the noisier highway roads, it'll automatically adjust the volume and EQ to compensate for the road noise. But it's seamlessly done. But you can choose how much you want rather than just all or nothing.
And for those wondering, it's a huge step above just using the fader to go back and forth. It's a huge step above that.
Correct.
Beautiful, beautiful sound in this car. And honest, to be really frank with you, I didn't know how much I was going to care about this car. So I came out here to California thinking, it's another tiny little crossover. It's from Mazda, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, it'll drive good, but yeah.
But now, if I didn't have 3 kids that I had to figure out how to pack in here, I'd totally buy this. Because this is... So, I own cell phones.
Right.
My smartphones are audio systems that happen to make phone calls.
Right.
That's how I view them.
Yeah.
I have 30 gigs of music on my phone right now, and that's because I downsized moving from an old phone to a new phone a couple weeks ago.
You had to compromise, yeah.
And I just didn't want to take the time transfer.
Oh.
Not everything on my old phone was on the micro SD.
Oh.
And I just haven't actually moved it
transferred
over.
Right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's just I can see owning this because that's how I would view the car.
Yeah.
The car is a stereo system with 4 wheels. My first car, I bought the car for $650. I put a $1,200 stereo in it immediately.
Yeah, my background...
When you're 17, priorities.
Yeah, in high school, I was the kid that was installing car stereos.
Yeah.
So I was doing all my friends' audio systems. I was building huge subwoofer enclosures and multiple 1,000-watt audio systems. My parents are deaf. So I grew up speaking sign language, but that also meant that I had complete control over the music in the car.
Yeah.
So when I got into car audio, my dad got into it because he could actually feel the music. He'd actually experience music. So I put 4 12-inch subs with over 2,000 watts of power in the trunk of his Benz. And he was just giddy because he could actually experience music.
Yeah.
And for him, that was a first. Because up until that point, I mean, he never really heard it. So to be able to feel it was really something that opened a new world to him. And this car, he can hear by feeling the music.
Right.
Because that bass impact is so visceral.
So it's funny because I was actually thinking about how disability has led to innovation.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the reasons music changed way back in the day when the old school headbangers started to appear and you had, Mozart and Beethoven really hitting power chords in their music was for Beethoven because he started to move towards those heavier sounds because he could hear them.
Exactly.
Where he couldn't hear the higher end stuff that was more basically the basis of all music at the time. And then coming down the line, heavy metal started because Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath, as the guitar player, he sheared off the edges of his fingers in a factory accident just before he was about to go on tour with the band at the time.
Holy cow.
And that disability led to him tuning down to a drop D so that he could bend the strings without pain. And that created what we think of now as heavy metal music. Yeah. Those disabilities are amazing things that just create these journeys for everybody.
Yeah, and I think, Mazda really takes pride in this idea of the challenger spirit. So Mazda is a small Japanese manufacturer, and we're based out of Hiroshima. So Hiroshima itself has overcome a lot, but Mazda has too, and so we take great pride in our abilities to overcome struggles and come out with some amazing innovations. Being able to do mass production on the rotary engine, to taking that same rotary engine and winning Le Mans with it, to all these innovative technologies like SkyActiv X, or even with this audio system in this vehicle, being able to surprise and delight with innovation that nobody really expected is what drives Mazda to do this challenger spirit, to really kind of deliver.
This one is, as a launch vehicle, this is exceedingly well done. And again, huge amounts of kudos for the audio. Huge amounts.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Great. There you go. Talk to you soon.